Today, I'm going to walk through how to clean water-contaminated oil out of the crankcase of your pump. The most important thing to note about today is that we need to get all the water out of our crankcase, otherwise the problem may persist. When cleaning the crankcase, we use a non-chlorinated brake cleaner, and we'll typically use 2 cans because we want to be nice and thorough. An important thing to note is that we will use a different cleaner to clean our sight glass, that way we don't cause any damage. And as always, before we do any of these repairs, we'll want to wear our safety glasses. So let's get to it. The easiest way to start draining the bad oil out of the crankcase is to take out the oil drain plug at the bottom of the pump using an 8mm Allen socket. Using the drain plug will allow you to drain the oil without creating a mess. When draining the oil, we want to make sure to remove the vent cap. That way, it allows as much airflow through to drain the oil out. Now that the oil has stopped draining through the oil drain plug, we're going to use a 5mm T-bar Allen wrench to remove the rear cover. Once we have the screws removed, we're going to use a small flathead screwdriver to pry the cover off. Once the cover's off, we'll allow the remaining oil to drain out. And if time allows, I'll typically let this sit overnight to allow as much of the oil and water mixture to drain out. Before we flush out our crankcase, we have to remove the sight glass and clean it with a silicone cleaner. In this case, we're going to use a WD-40 because our other cleaner would be too caustic and cause the sight glass to fog up. Using a 5mm T-bar Allen wrench, we're going to remove the 3 screws holding the sight glass into place. Then going to use a small flat-headed screwdriver and gently pry the sight glass off the crankcase. Using our silicone solution, we're going to spray off our sight glass, wipe it down. It's thoroughly clean. Now we can grab our non-chlorinated brake cleaner to spray every crack and crevice in this pump. Really take your time on this and go over everything a few times. It's better to be thorough and use too much than to use too little and contaminate the new oil. When we're all set with the brake cleaner, we want to go through with some compressed air and dry out the crankcase of any excess moisture that may be remaining. When we're confident that the crankcase is clean, and before we reassemble, we'll want to go through and clean off our rear cover before installation. Using the brake cleaner, I'm going to clean out the inside. To clean our O-ring, we're going to use a silicone solution, in this case WD-40. When we're confident that the crankcase is clean, we can go ahead and install the sight glass and crankcase cover. We're first going to start with installing our sight glass. Using a little bit of grease, we're going to lubricate our O-ring. And when installing this into place, we're going to make sure our hash marks are properly aligned so that we have the proper oil level sight when we're looking at it when filling oil. Before reinstallation, we're going to want to clean up the threads of our hardware with a soft bristled brush to make sure any debris or any old Loctite is removed from the threads. That way, when we add new Loctite, it adheres better to the threads going into the machine. Using blue Loctite, we're going to hand tighten our 3 mounting bolts. Once our bolts are hand tight, we're going to set our torque wrench to 7 foot-pounds and torque them into place. Before installing the rear cover, we'll add a thin coat of grease to the O-ring. Once lubricated, put our cover into place. Using blue Loctite, we'll hand tighten all of our mounting bolts. Using a torque wrench set to 7 foot-pounds, we'll go around and fasten these securely in place. As our final step before installing the pump and filling with oil, we're going to reinstall our drain plug on the bottom of the pump. We'll hand tighten into place. Using a torque wrench set to 13 foot-pounds, we're going to take an 8mm Allen socket and properly torque the plug into place. We put our 15W40 oil in a squeeze bottle so that it's easier to pour into the pump. Now we're going to add the 11 ounces this pump calls for. As we add, we want to watch the sight glass so the proper oil level will come across the middle hash mark. We're going to reinstall our vent cap. With the spark plug removed, we're going to turn the engine over to properly lubricate the internal components of the pump. Hook our pressure washer up to water, run and test.